So I have 3 more weeks with the M3 Max before the return window closes. Now it is awesome, but I'm starting to realize it's not perfect. Well, let me put it this way, maybe it is perfect, but now that I'm learning more about how things work since I bought this, I'm starting to understand where the bottlenecks are for what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find the best video editing machine for me. So is this the best editing thing for me or for you? Well, let's get into it. There are 2 very important things I'm looking for when video editing, and I only recently realized that they are 2 very different things. And please let me know if I'm wrong in the comments below about how this works, because I want to learn or be corrected when I'm wrong so that I can share with others. So the 2 important things when video editing are, number 1, and the most important thing for me, which is what started me down this whole rabbit hole, is I want a smooth video editing experience. This means smooth playback, scrubbing, cutting. I don't want to wait around for all those little split half seconds and they add up and they make you not want to edit videos. See, I recently sold my desktop with an 11th gen i7 because it wasn't smooth. I had to make proxies, it slowed me down, but it wasn't just the computer that was slowing down that process. More on that in a minute. Now, the second thing, and what I didn't realize until I got this Max, was when you want to use things like magic masks or fancy effects, this is where a dedicated video card can shine. When I was learning about GPUs, they're so insane because they can use so many more cores. So certain tasks that really focus on GPU utilization, the GPUs can just be so fast and effective. Now, I noticed this when, and you might remember when I was testing out my M3 Max versus my older Windows machine, which is 3 years older. The 3 years older Windows machine actually made the magic masks faster than the M3 Max because it has a dedicated graphics card. There's a 2080 in here. So a video card will absolutely shred things like the VFX. And I didn't really realize that when I got this thing. The Max and what Apple's been able to do makes the video editing experience insane. However, it really starts to kind of choke up a little bit when you start using those video effects. I'll show some examples shortly. I just have this Windows machine on and the fans are blowing here. Man, Windows fans are loud and annoying. Let's reboot this. So what I want to do today is I'm going to share my screen here. I have the M3 Max here. I have my Zephyrus G15 here. I filmed a bunch of different codecs at different frame rates. I have rebooted the M3 Max. It is fully charged. It's on battery. The tests that I'll do for the Windows machine will be on power, because if you want full power from a Windows laptop, you need to be plugged in. I'm going to edit everything in DaVinci Resolve. The goal of all of this is to see whether or not this M3 Max is the right machine for me, the right machine for you. There's some footage on here that you can download online. So perhaps if you have a different machine, I was hoping that maybe some of you that might edit in Resolve can test out this footage for yourself and let us all know the results. So we can say maybe you have an M1 Max or an M2 Max or an Intel machine or a desktop. We can compare how good each thing is to see where the cutoff is, where that sweet spot is. Because right now I'm at the M3 Max. I don't want to spend this much. I'm thinking I return it, get the M1 Max, and just pocket $3,000 Canadian and use that money to invest in the rest of my gear. Who knows, maybe after doing these tests, and maybe if somebody else chimes in, they can say that maybe it's a huge difference and the editing looks a lot smoother on here. So let's start off, let's just jump right in. I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna move kind of fast here because I've got a lot to do and I don't want this video to drag on forever. I'm gonna start off at 24 frames per second. Let's put it in full screen mode. Okay, actually no, if I don't have it in full screen, then these numbers will stay up. Okay, so what I've done with these frame rates for all the videos that I recorded on my own, I've done it in the most compressed format. So in this case, for these first 2, it will usually be at the beginning, the HS, I'm using my Sony A7 ZV-E1, and there's usually 3 types of compressions. There's the HS, which is the most compressed, smallest files, the S, which is right in the middle, and then the SI, which is the least compressed footage. So what I didn't realize when I used to edit on my old Intel machine is that I used to always edit in S, and it used to bog out on me a little bit. That's important because what I have since learned since getting this computer, and what I wish I knew all along, is that the more uncompressed your footage is, the easier it is to video edit. So right away we'll see. So let's look at this right now. This is 24 frames per second. These first 2 clips are on HS compression through the Sony. And as you'll see, when I hit spacebar, And one of the things for you to keep your eyes on is on the video here at the top left, there's this little green dot here. When it's green, that means it's not skipping, it's playing in real time. So whenever that's red, that's a sign that the computer is bogging out. Right away when I hit spacebar, it's pretty much instant. It plays right away. My test and what I can usually tell right now after I've used a few different computers is when I scrub like this, if you can see the frames, if they move very quickly, that's a good sign that everything can handle it. If you look up at the GPU, right now, using in this compressed format, we're hanging around, what was that? Around under 50, 40 to 50%. The CPU's at 11%, the RAM's barely being used. So with this format, it scrubs well, 24 frames per second. Okay, so this one, again, at all the 24 frames per second, these are all 4K videos, no proxies. The scrubbing looks great on that. And then this is the last one here is the, you can just see, I don't know if you can tell from your side, but just the scrubbing just looks so insane. You can see every single frame. It's just a breeze right away. You can notice the difference, even with these 24 frames per second. But this computer makes it real easy. I'll do magic masks and effects and stuff at the end. Actually, I can just throw things up now. I'll show you what I was talking about. So something like digital glitch. Even on the 24 with the uncompressed, watch what happens. See, it's bogging a little bit. Let's go back there. Oh yeah, you can see it's just a little bit choppy. The GPU usage now is all of a sudden at 90%. So when we're going through that, you can tell that that's what I was talking about, where the graphics card really gets pushed when it comes to effects, but for scrub and stuff. So let me just, one more test I'll spend time on here, and we won't do this as much later, is when the computer gets used to working with the SI format, GPU's at 50%, under 50, CPU. Okay, everything works good here. Let's close this project. Let's go up to 30. Okay, so with the 30 on the Sony, it doesn't shoot in the HS, the most compressed, it's just S and SI, which is the uncompressed one, which is now all I ever use. I'm shooting in right now, even though I probably don't need to because it's gonna be a gigantic file, but it's just so great to edit with. Okay, so see right here, we're starting to notice a little bit. So 4K 30, you can see when I'm scrubbing my daughter's movements, it looks pretty good. It's keeping up real fast. GPU's at 56%. The playback is great. If I'm cutting and editing this stuff real quick, it's doing a pretty damn good job. It might have tiny millisecond pauses, but it's pretty smooth. Let's hop over to the GPU's at 55, 60%. CPU and RAM are barely being used. Let's go over to the SI side and just look at the scrubbing on SI codec. I'm telling you, if you want the smooth editing experience, the codec makes a huge difference. I never knew that. I never knew it was such a difference. And all those years that I've been editing and working on footage and making proxies, I might not have even needed to if I shot in a different codec. The space isn't that bad. It's not, the files aren't that big. I'm not making movies here, you know. My biggest files that my YouTube video, my last one that I just did, I have about 120 gigs of footage and B-roll, you know, between 20 and 30 clips, just to give you an idea of how, that's for like a 12-minute video. So yeah, you can see here, the GPU is still working. It's starting to work. It's bouncing between 50 and 70%. CPU is doing nothing, but look at that playback, that scrubbing. So let's drop in just the digital glitch. Let's see how it plays on the, yeah, you can see the footage just starts to chop. And that's where when I first got this M3 Max and I dropped in, you know, a little effect like that, I was like, oh, it still bogs down. That kind of sucks. So that's where I think, a computer that just has like a 4090 or something in it, I don't know, would it stop? See, like the playback looks so good, but for anybody out there, can you let me know if you drop in the digital glitch on 4K 30 without proxies, will it play it smooth? I don't know. I want to know. Let's move that over to, oops. And see, so I accidentally clipped it. One of my favorite little shortcuts is I made the undo and redo on my left thumb. So I didn't want to make that clip. So let me just use my mouse and oh man, it's so fast. Okay, and what about on this side, the compressed one? Does it chop even more? Not really. You see, GPU's at 90% for that. Okay, 30 frames per second handles it like a boss. Let's bump up to 60 frames per second 4K. This one does have more of a compress the HS?
The smallest per second of HS in the smallest.
HS, okay. So it still does 4K 60. So the scrubbing still looks pretty good. How's the CPU and RAM? The CPU and RAM have stayed, I haven't really looked at it yet. This has 48 gigs. We'll look at it more once I start pushing it harder. But yeah, the stats and stuff still seem all the same. You can see with the S, the scrubbing at 4K 60. It's not, when I hit spacebar, it still plays it really smooth. Oh, okay, full screen here. Okay. You can see even while it's playing, when I just let go of the mouse, it starts playing after a split second. It's not perfect, but this is on the compressed ones. Let's hop over to the SI. And I mean, you can see right the split second I let go of my mouse, it plays. So again, on the compressed ones, it's a little tiny delay. I know it's not much. To most people, maybe it's not a big deal, but to me, when I'm just blasting through edits, I mean, look at how nice this codec works. So even at this point with 4K 60 with no proxies, you're really starting to slow down when you put on the digital glitch, let alone on the other effects. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to use. I want more of that stuff. I want this smooth, fast editing that this M3 Max offers, but I also want effects like this to, okay, now let's here, I know I can change the timeline resolution. So let's bump that down to half. Let's see what happens. Still chokes. Let's bump that down to a quarter. Still chokes. So it doesn't have anything really to do with what the playback, it definitely seems to me like the graphics, the GPU side of things. So let me look at the numbers up here when it's going on. Yeah, it just maxes out. I know I can check out the activity monitor. Let's see. Memory, CPU, GPU. Let's get that going. Can we make this bigger? I just want to see what happens now. If that's GPU, let's sort you out. And that GPU is going. The CPU and the RAM aren't really being pushed at all. Okay, so my takeaway after, well, you know what, before I talk about that, let's just close this and look at 120. So this is only a 1080p. And the reason that I'm doing all these different timelines like that is because with DaVinci Resolve, you have to set the timeline for each frame rate. So even though what you're watching right now, I believe I'm gonna try and make it in 60 frames per second, just so that you can see some of the smoothness of when I'm editing 60. If I bring in 24 frames per second and edit it on a 60 frames, I wanna do all the editing in their own genuine timelines. I don't know if that makes sense or not. So let's go right now. I have this one at 120, this is at 1080p. So this timeline is actually 120 frames per second timeline. Usually you would bring maybe 120 frames per second footage into a 60 or a 30 frame per second timeline, and then you could just slow it right down. But I kind of wanted to see what happens. So by putting it in its own 120 frames per second timeline. Oh yeah, I think I had slowed it down here. Just having some fun.
4208-bit.
Okay, so there we go.
4208-bit.
4208-bit. GPUs. Yeah, the numbers are still kind of the same for working on it. The scrubbing isn't as great. This isn't the SI, I don't believe. So for all these formats, for anything that the Sony can throw at it, the editing on the M3 Max is smooth like butter. With the right codec, I'm having the time of my life over here editing, doing basic edits with normal text. So again, okay, let's open up, let's switch over to these BlackMagic. So these footage, if you just Google BlackMagic sample footage, you can get these clips on your own if you want to test it out. So this is I had to make a custom timeline resolution. It's at 24 frames per second. If we look over at the file here, we can see frame rate and the resolution. Oh, also, because I forgot to mention earlier, I just did a light edit. I shot all my footage of my daughter and I dancing in S-Log3, and then I just did a basic color grade. I changed it over with a color space transform node, and I just edited the colors a little bit. So with this one, again, let's okay, right away we can see the numbers are starting to change a little bit. So the GPU's at what, 60 to 70%. The CPU spiked a bit there. There's a little bit more RAM being used. So I use that for V. I set that shortcut. The scrubbing still looks buttery smooth. We're not losing any frames. If you see the little green dot over here. The computer is quiet. It's not heating up. So footage like this, BlackMagic raw footage. Is this ProRes? I can't remember. I thought I labeled them. I know you can see it's 6K with the L mount, but that's nothing. That's easy for this machine. Okay, let's go back to the project manager. What do I have here? I've got 8K at 96 frames per second. What timeline did I put this one in? Yeah, 96 frames per second. Wow, this is a big beefy file. Slow-mo. So this would be 24 frames per second times 4. So this is equivalent to 120. You can see there, I can still handle, let me just double check. This is 8K footage from a RED camera. And look at that scrubbing. So I'm guessing the RED stuff is pretty uncompressed. I mean, the GPU is maxed out right now, just working on this footage. There's no effects even going on. Look at the CPU is up to 60, the RAM's up to 60. So now we're making this thing start to work. What happens, look, if I put on the digital glitch, it just turns into a slideshow. Can't really handle graphics like that over top of the footage. So how do you people that edit files like this, do you just make the proxies or do you just use video cards? Do they make it so you can use effects? I can't see how this effect looks live when I'm putting it on footage. I don't know about a lot of you, but sometimes I put on this effect or the text or something, one of these filters, and I just pray that it looks good once I've rendered it because it plays smooth. But during the editing, it just looks like this, like a slideshow. And I'm like, oh, I hope it looks cool. I just, yeah, pray that it works. Editing on this, so how I would edit footage usually is I would clip, crop, clip, split. I use ripple forward, ripple backwards, do lots of those kinds of things, and add markers here and there for all my B-roll spots. And this is just, yeah, even on this gigantic 8K footage, which I would never use, it makes editing this no problem. Even if we're just gonna put text, how are we doing? Yeah, you can see on the top here, 96 frames per second with basic text edits. Let's stack up a couple here. Let's see what happens. Actually, let's do 3 8K. Oh yeah, is that starting to bog down a little? Can I still, so I can scrub. Yeah, you can see here. Okay, we're down to 31 frames per second. Okay, so there you go. If you start stacking 8K footage on an M3 Max, what about text? Will that make it worse? Basic text? Yeah. That's not really what I would want to do. I think at that point, one would be using proxies or, what about if we put the timeline resolution, let's bump that down to 1/4. Let's give it a second. And there we go. We just changed the timeline resolution and now we're stacking 4K or 8K footage with text and it's getting full playback speed. Not too shabby. Oops, okay. Let's keep going. Oh, I had a ProRes one here, some footage, 60 frames per second. Where did I get this one from? Yeah, I mean, just look at the scrubbing. I don't know if you can tell, but just that footage looks really good. Where are we at with the GPU? We're bouncing around here. The CPU and RAM, again, are going pretty low. I guess this ProRes is just so easy to work on for this chip. But what's interesting is this is still a big file. Let's close this one down. Let's open up, let's go to 8K 120, but I have this on a 60 frames per second timeline. And you can see, right, if you look at the green dot here, right as I click and move, there's that split second where the scrubbing looks pretty damn good. Definitely doable and usable. Yeah, it looks great. You could work on this and split it and mark it and split it and everything, no problem. Let's just put basic text on here. Okay, we're full. Yeah, the scrubbing around on that looks fine. So that's good. What happens if we stack 2 of them? Does it start to choke a little bit? I mean, a little bit. Not too bad. So what happens here? So let's take this, change the clip speed down to 50%. Does it work harder? Yeah, it takes a split second, but no, looks good. So I have a feeling if we do the digital glitch, yeah, it kind of slows down. It's weird that it says that, okay, there we go. Yeah, 12 frames per second there. How's our GPU? The RAM's looking pretty thick. Okay, what happens? Let's just, I don't really know when RAM kicks in. So let's just say I was working on 4 files stacked. Okay, so now the CPU's, look at that. The CPU's at 100%, the RAM's at 70, the GPU's at 99. All right. So it does come in. I hear the fans on. It's getting pretty warm. Huh, stacked 4K or stacked 8K 120 footage. I'm sorry, my little Max friend, but this is what you were built for. Let's go back down to, oops, I'm deleting all that. Let's go back down to 1. I didn't really look at the numbers here. So we've got 1, the CPU's at 50%, the RAM's at 70%, the GPU's at almost 90. So yeah, it's a nice editing experience, basic edits. And then the last one I have on this computer is the 8K 120 at 30. Okay, I think when I was doing this, yeah, I wanted to see, okay, so effects look like crap on pretty much anyone. Let's go down to change the clip speed down to 25%. Make it super duper slow. I just thought that maybe it adds more frames. Or wait a minute, what if we go in the other direction? Change clip speed. Let's go to 200%. So that's 60. I want to see that at 400%, because that would make 120 frames per second normal speed, right? All right, does it make it work harder? Yeah. It looks great. Okay, cool. Cool beans. So the editing on here, on battery, where are we at for our battery life now? We are at 92%. I mean, this video, how long have I been going? Do I have my clock on there? 30 minutes of recording, 30 minutes of testing this out. It handled all the basic stuff really easily. Let's do some mask. What happens? Okay, right now, let me just do here to, how long is that? 18, 5-second clip. Let's go into here. Let's go to our magic mask. Let's select our girl. Okay, let's add you. And let's see what happens. Is this speed the same across the board? 5, 7. Usually I get between 11 and 15 frames per second. So it did 9 frames per second on that magic mask. Let me just close that. Let's bring up nice easy 24. Let's do it on the SI to make it even easier. Well, I'll do Ruby dancing on the 30 here. So that was a 5-second clip. So let's go 5 seconds to you. Let's go over to magic mask. Whoop. Okay, let's add in some legs here. And is it any different? Okay, so it does go faster working on the smaller files. Not a ton. It does go faster though. And just so that we can see, let's see how fast it can get on the nicest codec at only 24 frames. This should be the fastest magic mask. Yeah, I saw 15. That's the fastest I've ever seen it on the M3 Max. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of what this thing is capable of, something that you can compare it versus your computer. I hope that helps, because I've learned quite a bit. But what I don't know is I haven't tested, I want to do this kind of stuff on a lot of different computers, on the Windows ones, on desktop, on laptops. So maybe what I'll do right now is, okay, I'm gonna close this and let's boogie over to, okay. So my camera just overheated. Are we live? Is this, my mic still on? Okay, cool. The camera, that's the first time my ZV-E1 has ever overheated. I'm changing the quality down from SI back to S because that SI was shooting in what, 300 megabits per second. Sorry if it's wrong, if it's megabytes. I thought it was a smaller B. Never remember those. I put it down back to S format, XAVC-S at 140 megabits per second. So hopefully it doesn't happen again. Man, I get why people want the A7S III or the FX series cameras, because I've never done a video like this and it's fun. I like being able to do longer form content, but man, overheating's a real thing. Oh gosh. Okay, anyway, well, let's get to it then. This is me on my Windows computer editing 24K. The one thing that I wanted to test out before it was about to die was the digital glitch. Let's do it on the SI one. Does it work any better? Let's see. No, it does not. So this playback is smooth until it hits to the effects, and then let's just see what the frame rate here, 11, 12. Okay, so the computer did rest while my camera was cooling, but it is already getting hot again. Now I don't even know how to use a Windows computer anymore. Okay, let's boogie over to the Magic Mask. Where are we here? Let's close the clip pool. Let's put it on her. Put it on the mask and track. So this is on. Now this is interesting. I don't know if I have the latest drivers, but it shouldn't matter. So we're the tracking speed, I think it got to what, 15 frames per second on the M3 Max when we did it earlier here. Okay, so it's not even as fast now. I swear when I did tests earlier, this was at least as fast, if not faster, but we just saw it just now. What are we on, 24 frames per second? I'll do that test again afterwards. Let's close this. Let's go right up to 60. I'm gonna skip 30 for now, see if it matters. So okay, so working on the 60, the compressed one, you can see scrubbing, not too bad actually. If I hit spacebar, oh, it's not playing fast at all in the compressed one. So let's go over to the S, the middle compression. So it is just getting hot and the fans are screaming. Ooh, it's getting hot. If I hit spacebar, oh my goodness. We're not getting any playback here. How about in the SI? Okay, the scrubbing looks good here. How about playback? See, that's what I'm talking about. The SI codec on the Sony is just so easy to work on for your computer. Like, no wonder I thought my last computer sucked. I was working on these compressed files. Look at this. This is no proxy, no nothing. 3-year-old laptop. It's working and editing great on here. Just for fun, let's cut this. Let's go over to Magic Mask and I just want to see if the speeds are any different. Okay, yeah, so it's going a little fast, hanging around the 12. Okay, that's cool. That's all I need to know, pal. Okay, so scrubbing looks good. What about if we were to stack up at this rate? Is it gonna die? No, SI format, you can stack it. It still edits well. I bet if we do that working on these compressed ones, I mean, look at that. What's the point of even stacking it? I can't even work on this footage. I hit spacebar, look at those numbers, 7 frames per second. All right, well, let's try and break this thing, shall we? Let's go up to 6K. All right, what do you think's gonna happen when I hit spacebar? All right, ready? Let's find a nice frame. Okay, well, here's the scrubbing. It's scrubbing. This is BlackMagic footage, so it should run pretty well. Let's hit spacebar and 8 seconds. Okay, yeah, we are not getting smooth playback here. What if we change the timeline resolution to 1/4? Let's hit spacebar. All right, we're at 24 frames per second. The scrubbing is pretty good. It would be manageable when I hit space. Okay, I'm gonna do the mouse drag, let go. Yeah, it works. You could do something. Dare I? Dare I? Okay. All right, we're at 13 frames per second playing a 6K file. Oh, here comes the glitch. Here comes the slideshow. I'm gonna break this thing, I just know it. I hope it can't catch fire, can it? Because it is hot. There's wood underneath here. I hope, okay. So yeah, wouldn't really want to edit this. I mean, the 4K 60 stuff, similar. This file isn't working as well as the SI for 60. So let's go to the 8K red footage. Let's hit spacebar and 6 frames per second. All right, let's open you up a little bit. Hey, there we go. We're almost at, how many, what's the frame rate of this? Yeah, it's 24 frames per second. Yeah. Okay, let's put the timeline res to half. What happens here? Well, I'm gonna close that down. All right, so sorry, I know it's a long video, but those are just the kind of tests that I wanted to run. I wanna talk about this stuff. I'd love to know what your experience with your computer is like versus what I'm doing. Is your M1 Max as good at, you know, editing 4K 30? That's really what I work on. I think 4K 30 SI is gonna be the sweet spot for me. I wanna do more effects. I want my videos to be fun and have cool things. I wanna be able to use my imagination, and I don't have the tools yet. I'm still learning the editing software, but this makes me wanna use the editing software. But is there any way that I can use this Max and have a better experience with using graphics, even like the digital glitch? Here's what I learned over the last little while. The better CPU and power management of the Apple makes editing a breeze, which is great, but you also need a good codec to work on as well. So if you have a camera that has highly compressed files, even if you have a good computer, those files are gonna be hard to work on unless you make proxies or convert it into ProRes. That takes time, but if you're not cranking out content fast, whatever. So the good computer mixed with a good codec equals a good smooth video editing experience. Now, if you want to take that to the next level, which is kind of what I'm trying to do right now, you need the video card, you need the graphics. I think I can get away with something like this, but maybe again, going to like the M1 Max for half the price, I can get the similar video editing experience. Sure, I can't really do the effects, but I'd rather spend a little bit and maybe use that extra money to build a desktop where I could get a video card and do that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? I don't know. I still don't know what I need. I'm highly impressed that I can video edit on the go on the battery with this thing. It's very impressive. It makes me want to use it. I really like it, but I wonder if I would be as happy on a lesser computer, maybe the M1 or M2, and save that money. So let's chat in the comments. If you're still with me, I appreciate it. Let me know if you like these kinds of videos or not. If you do, what else you might want to see in the future. I wanted to get it out there for anybody out there who is having a hard time deciding if this is enough computer, if it's too much computer, if it's not enough, if you need a video card or not. Let's talk about it. All right. In case you missed my last video, check that out here. Otherwise, maybe check out this one next. See you next time on the SAD Studio. Yeah!